Hi guys, this is Jean from Happy Indulgence, and today I'm going to be talking about three very popular books in the blogosphere, and that is the Grisha Trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. Obviously with King of Scars on the horizon, a lot of people will be interested in this series and whether they should be picking it up if they haven't already. If you're like me, you've only read the Six of Crows duology multiple times only because it's the best book ever, but I have had this series on my shelf for a long time and I actually just binge read the whole series so I could be prepared for King of Scars, because obviously I haven't met Nikolai before as a character. So I'm going to be talking about each and every one of these books to see whether you should read the trilogy or not, and whether you should delve straight into King of Scars as well. So let's just get started. So just a reminder, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, hit the subscribe button down below. I would super appreciate that. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for returning to watch my videos. So now let's talk about Shadow and Bone. And just a quick note, Shadow and Bone was actually published back in 2012, and now that it's 2019, that was actually 7 years ago. So when you think about it, it's been a long time since this book has been published. A lot has changed in the YA atmosphere. I think I was blogging then when this book first came out and there was a lot of hype about it and people loved it, but I just never got around to reading it, and it has been on my shelf for a long time now. I actually delved straight into Six of Crows when it first came out. Yeah, it just never really appealed to me until now because I wanted to know more about whether I should pick it up or not and what everyone has been talking about for a long time. So when I say that this book hasn't dated well, what I mean is that a lot of the romantic tropes in this book are really outdated. I found like the obsession that a lot of people have with the Darkling is quite disturbing, only because he feels like an abusive type of protagonist. Back in the day of books like Hush Hush and Twilight, it was actually romantic to have a stalker type of mysterious character who would watch you sleep and dictate what you did, and the main character would be someone who's like a bland, plain Jane who has no personality or resolve of her own. I understand, guys. I understand that back in the day that was what was hot in YA, and it obviously isn't anymore since the Me Too movement and since feminism has taken off pretty much in the millennial society. I've actually bookmarked a lot of these times where I found the Darkling to be overstepping the boundaries when it comes to Alina. What he does is he discovers that Alina has the power of summoning light and summoning the sun, and he takes her away into his castle and grooms her basically to become his equal. And I found that really disturbing because a lot of the book was about how he placed her into this room and how she learns the court politics and how to live amongst royalty, but she doesn't know anything about the Darkling. She's just really interested that he's handsome, he's powerful, and he's mysterious. And there was a point in the book when he actually kisses her, and that actually came out of completely nowhere. And her being a vulnerable teenager, she's just turned 16, the Darkling is hundreds of years old, so not only is there a huge age gap where he's learned how to take advantage of a naive woman, but also she doesn't know any better. She's naive, she's young, a more powerful man is after her, and she's just pretty much going to go along with it, even though she's been in love with her best friend Mal for a long time. And there's this point in the book where the Darkling actually just randomly kisses her out of the blue, and I found like there was no development in their romance at all. He's pretty much just done this to her and he's off gallivanting into his own world and using his powers and his army and gathering them together. Whereas you've got Alina back in the court, and what she's doing is she's met another Grisha called Genya, and Genya's teaching her about parties, about makeup, about all that nice stuff. And she's basically being spoiled and groomed and treated like royalty, and of course she's going to lap it up. What I enjoyed about this book is the whole Grisha background is based off Russian mythology. I'm obviously not new to the authors of the Grisha, having read the Six of Crows duology. Just a hot tip, when I first read this book I was so confused because of all the Grisha terms that I use. It doesn't develop much in the world building itself. Instead, all these terms are just dropped in, like, you know, the summoners and the different orders of the Grisha and how they interact with the world around them. But I actually looked up the Grisha wiki, which I'll leave a link to down below, and it's really interesting because it goes deeper into each of the Grisha orders and what each class can do. So after reading that and coming back to this book, yes, it was actually a reread. So I have read it once before, 4 years ago, but I wanted to reread it so I could delve straight into the next book, having the background of this book. I found the Darkling to be super creepy. I did not ship him and Alina at all. I just find that ship to be quite disturbing, to be honest. I did like how Alina is into her best friend Mal because they've been raised as orphans in the same village. That was really interesting to me. But the fact that Alina just felt like such a naive and kind of dumb character, to be honest. I mean, she's just swept along with all these decisions that people are making for her. She feels like a really meek character without much personality, and I rolled my eyes so much because she's the type of character that's described as a plain Jane, that's super bland, you know, has brown hair, is nondescript, yet she has this superpower. And her power is summoning light. She feels like the biggest special snowflake because of how everyone treats her, because she has this power, how the Darkling treats her, and how Mal, her best friend, treats her as well. And throughout the whole book, people keep on telling her how special she is and how she's the savior of Ravka. We've got Darkling as well, who also treats her like a huge special snowflake. I don't know, I just found that really irritating because let me find the quote. Alright, so here's a quote from the Darkling, and it's so, oh my god, it's so eye-rolling. It's, "I've been waiting for you a long time, Alina. You and I are going to change the world." I laughed nervously. "I'm not the world-changing type. Just wait," he said softly. Oh my gosh. How special can you be for people to just adopt you and then groom you and then suddenly just treat you like you're like the biggest special snowflake? Speaking of the boundaries between the Darkling and Alina, there was this really super disturbing scene in here, and I just want to read it out and then I'll tell you guys what I think about it. So, this is what it says. "If the Darkling came to my room tonight, what would it mean? The idea of being his sent a little jolt through me. I didn't think he was in love with me and I had no idea what I felt for him, but he wanted me and maybe that was enough." Oh my gosh, guys, doesn't that just strike you as she just wants to be wanted and she'll go along with whatever he wants to do just so it makes her feel validated as a person? Being wanted as a male desirable object is apparently meant to make you feel really special. And that's what I found really disturbing out of this book as well. It also has some really unhealthy ideals about beauty. So there's this character or a Grisha called Genya, and she can basically manipulate how you look, and she looks absolutely beautiful, not only because she has this power, but also because she's been employed by the court as her job to make the queen look pretty. Genya obviously works everything that she has because she's beautiful, but there's a few quotes in here that talk about how it's a lot easier if you're pretty, and it's a lot easier and respected by the court and the king and the other people if you look the part and if you look beautiful, and that you do need to be enhanced and at your peak game and your peak makeup look and wearing the finest clothes to be respected at the court. While that may be true to an extent, I just find the ideals of beauty to be kind of self-sabotaging, especially to someone who doesn't have high self-esteem, who is Alina. She should be embracing what she has, especially since these thoughts are other people's thoughts projected onto her, and it felt like she didn't really have a mind of her own. Shadow and Bone was a great introduction to the Grisha Trilogy. It wasn't my cup of tea when it came to the romance with the Darkling, when it came to Alina being a super bland plain Jane character, but I found it entertaining enough. I wanted a lot more about the Grisha mythology, about the world of Ravka, about what the Darkling does, and more about the Darkling in fact, and hopefully less about Alina. I ended up giving it 3 stars because I enjoyed it. I found it entertaining despite all the problematic elements that I brought up. And yeah, so I delved straight into Siege and Storm. So what did I think of the second book in the series? Guys, this was my favorite book in the entire trilogy, and I was so surprised by it because I found Shadow and Bone so problematic. But Siege and Storm introduced us to Nikolai, who is going to be in King of Scars, thankfully, and he is the best character ever. He's cocky, he's arrogant, he's charming, he's a prince that is totally self-entitled, but he's not the heir to the throne, and that's what he has his sights on. He's really great at pulling together an army, he's great at winning people's support and people's loyalty, and that's why he would make a great ruler. But his brother stands in the way. His story was just so fascinating, and I loved hearing a lot more about Nikolai. Unfortunately, we don't follow Nikolai in this book. We follow Alina again, and she's basically got her puppy dog friend Mao following her around. It's actually really interesting because in this book, she's away from the Darkling, but the Darkling stalks her a lot. And during these shadowy moments, she kind of likes the stalking, which is still creepy. Still a creepy remnant from the first book. But I'm glad there wasn't too much of that because it was more about Alina and Nikolai and Mao gaining support through the army. They're traveling through Ravka, so we hear a lot more about the Grisha world and the orders and how they work. There's a lot more political intrigue as well because obviously Alina is now the Sun Summoner and she's gathering lots of support, and people are actually praising her as a saint because of her special snowflake power. Alina's still a big special snowflake. I still found Mao and her to be really boring characters. I found Mao just as appealing as a wet rag, to be honest. Like, when you compare Mao to Nikolai, who is like this totally fascinating character that really jumps off the page, and he's basically the best thing that's ever happened to the Grisha Trilogy. And when you even compare him to Darkling and the mysterious character that the Darkling is, and he has a darkness within him, and just the way he connects to Alina, it's like the Darkling needs Alina to survive because he feels like she's his equal. When you put him next to these two intriguing characters, Mao just does not hold a candle. And it's actually really funny because I used to ship best friend to lovers romances, but it's so boring in this one. There's so many great possibilities and so many great romantic elements that could happen in here. Anyway, so Siege and Storm was a lot more interesting to me because the parts of Shadow and Bone that I loved, the parts about the magic and the world of Ravka and the political intrigue, it's like Leigh Bardugo knew exactly what to play on for the second book, and she covered it in Siege and Storm. And oh my gosh, it was just so interesting because I found Alina, even though she was a meek character at the start, she gains a lot more power here. She learns how to harness her sun summoning abilities, and she's gained an army and she's gained more and more support, and she just becomes a more complex character because she knows her power and she knows to harness it. And then you can see that she's switched on a bit of a dark side to her, so when she needs to command that power, she uses it. And that's what I really liked about her in this one. She's grown so much from that meek little girl who will just let someone dictate what she does into someone who has the right to command a legion of her own. In fact, there is one part in this book where it's about an army and she just comes in with no experience to direct an army and to take control of it. I'm glad that the book talks about how someone inexperienced couldn't possibly win people's support and have the ability and the experience to dictate an army, because you're fighting against commanders who have been working in this position for a long time. And that's something that I find problematic in YA books, that a lot of them don't talk about how these are basically 16 or 17-year-old teenagers who have no experience and they think they can dictate and run the world with success. But it does address that part of it as well. So I felt like there was so much tension in here, even though they were traveling through Ravka and earning political gain and everything. It advanced Alina and Mao's relationship, so for them they're talking a lot about whether they're equals or not. Mao's slightly threatened with Alina's new power and he's wondering where he sits with her in the future, whether they'll be a lasting couple. And then on the other hand, you've got Alina who's dreaming about the Darkling, literally, who's being haunted by the Darkling. Guys, Siege and Storm was so fascinating and I absolutely loved it. And it made me really excited for Ruin and Rising. I gave this one 4.5 stars. Now on to Ruin and Rising. And guys, I'm just going to be totally straight up honest about this book. I'm not going to go into any spoilers. It's going to be hard, but Ruin and Rising is probably one of the top most disappointing endings of all time for me. When I look at all the books that I've read and the most disappointing endings, it sits up there right next to Allegiant. And now with Allegiant, I was so angry I actually threw the book across the room. And I've been so salty about the ending to Ruin and Rising for a long time. I've been ranting to my friends about it. And it just felt like it had so much potential, especially since you know how much I love Siege and Storm, right? And it just felt like it went backwards with the character development with Alina. You know, Shadow and Bone, she's a meek character, then she peaks in Siege and Storm, then she goes totally backwards into this meek character. Oh my gosh, all her character development just totally disappears in this book and she turns into that meek girl again, and gosh, it was such a frustrating journey to watch. Not only that, but I felt like it was a waste of the characters of the Darkling and of Nikolai as well. Within this book, it's like Nikolai didn't really have much of a say in it, and also the author turns him into this weird Volcra thing halfway through, and he just basically has no role in this book at all, and that made me really sad. And I felt like so much could have happened here. Like, it could have ended in one of two ways, and instead you gave the worst possible ending to Alina, and I just felt so frustrated about it. This book could have been great, but it really wasn't. Not only that, but it felt like a complete mess of a book. Like, the first half of the book is about Alina being someone's slave, basically, and she's apparently pretending to be weak because that's what this apparate priest guy wants in her, and that's the behavior he wants from her. But then he never really gets his justice either, and I also found like it was a mess of a book. Basically, in the first one, she's meeting the Darkling, and the second one, she's gaining political influence. In this one, it feels like it all flies out the window. They have some plot twists as well that just felt like it was just completely out of the blue, and suddenly you're here to try and pick up the pieces going, what the hell? In fact, the ending was so bad. It's probably one of the worst endings of all time. I could not believe it when I had reached the end. I was actually at the hairdresser reading the end of this book, and I had to like pause for a second and go back a few pages before and reread it because I just couldn't quite picture or put together or comprehend that this was the ending that Leigh Bardugo had given to Alina. I just felt so sad because I felt like even though she's a boring character that I didn't really like for most of the series, I started to like her in Siege of Storm, but it felt like it was so backwards with what Ruin and Rising did with a character, and it felt like the way it ended was not really what she wanted but what someone else wanted, and that just felt really sad to me. I gave Ruin and Rising 2.5 stars because it just felt like such a mess of a book that just made me really salty and really disappointed, and I was actually a bit in a slump after this because I didn't want to pick up any other book in fear that it's going to disappoint me as much as this one was going to. Anyway, for those of you interested, I'm just going to go into a spoilery discussion now, so if you don't want to know what happens at the end of this series, just click out. Alright, so spoiler discussion. Oh my gosh, guys, I am so freaking disappointed in Ruin and Rising. Okay, here's the three possibilities that could have happened. One, Alina could have decided that she was a powerful sun summoner on her own, and she could have stood on her own with alliances from Nikolai and the Darkling. Did she? No. Number two, she could have ended up with the Darkling because they felt like true equals with how he balances her out with her meekness, and he makes her powerful, and he makes her better. Now, you know how I felt about the Darkling to begin with. I felt like he was creepy, but I'm glad we got his backstory here. But, oh my god, yes, he's evil, but I feel like killing off the Darkling did not solve any of the problems in Ravka at all. In fact, Darkling was trying to solve the problems of Ravka with the corrupt king, with all the orders of the Grisha not working well together. But instead, she kills him off, and how does that help anything? Basically, my review for this book is, it's called Ruin and Rising because my thoughts on the Grisha Trilogy are now ruined, and my bitterness is now rising. So you could have ended up with a Darkling, you could have balanced your powers, and you could have worked out a way to fix Ravka, but no, that didn't happen. Instead, you killed him, and I have no idea why. I don't know what purpose that would have solved, except that he started killing people. And apparently people still ship Alina and Darkling together. I really don't get it. But I could see the alliance, and I could see how she could be the only one who could bring the Darkling back down to her level and to be the savior for the Darkling. But nah, that didn't happen either, and I actually think that's why a lot more people are disappointed. She could have ended up with Nikolai, and Nikolai had a plan for her because they're both equals, they're both powerful. Nikolai has what it takes when it comes to controlling the army and when it comes to gaining allies and influence. Alina has the actual power to back that up, and she has like all this reverence and support from the kingdom. No, that didn't happen either. Instead, she ends up with Mal. Holy shit, guys, I'm so angry that she got a Katniss ending here, because when had Alina ever wanted to say that she wanted to go back to the village that she hated and to live out a farmer's lifestyle and to start an orphanage? It sounds like she just went along with Mal and what he wanted, and oh my gosh, I'm just so angry because I felt like she had so much potential. She had so much power and influence that she had gained in these 3 books, but then she just goes back to the beginning and does what she would have probably fallen into if she never had joined the Grisha order. And I just felt like it was just a waste of her talent, and it's just a waste of her character as well. And Mal, oh my gosh, fuck Mal, he just makes me so angry. I mean, the whole time he's like whining, he's like a whiny bitch, and he just keeps on whining and whining about Alina and how she's a summoner now and how she's lost herself and how he can't see that she can be this powerful being. Dude, it's not all about you, okay? And then he starts acting out and playing with the other royals and snobbing her and playing mind games. Dude, you're better off without him, like seriously. And then suddenly he just becomes the 3rd amplifier, and suddenly, oh my god, now Alina's going to listen to him because Mal suddenly became more interesting than a wet rag. I just hate how apparently, because now he's a 3rd amplifier, somehow he's important to the story again. And somehow he's a powerful male again, and somehow his character's redeemed so much that he ends up winning the prize, which is what he wanted in the first place, which was Alina. And I just felt like the ending was so Mal-centric. Mal was probably the worst thing that happened to her, or the worst character for her to end up in. Maybe before everything happened, her and Mal would have been perfect for each other, but so much has happened to her with the way that she's developed herself, with her new powers, with her new self-awareness. Like, I actually did not completely hate Alina in Siege of Storm, but I hated her here because she just went along with anything that Mal said. And I feel like she's just such a weak character that is pushed around by all the males in her world. Not to mention the girl and girl hate in here. Her and Zoya, like Zoya's snarky and everything, but she's also a bit of a bitch, and she's painted to be that way. I didn't completely hate Zoya in here, but just the fact that her and Alina kind of gain a weird understanding between each other. It's okay to have female friendships, and it's okay to have positive female friendships, which is something that this book does not contain at all, unless you look at her and Genya, but then Genya's ruined as well. Oh my gosh, I'm so salty about the way that Alina ended up with Mal. Like, I just cannot get over my salt for this series. I just wish that Ruin and Rising came with an alternate ending, where she either ended up 1 with Nikolai, or 2 with Darkling, or 3 by herself, and pushed away Mal because Mal's a freaking whiny bastard. And now to answer the question that you're all wondering, should you read the Grisha Trilogy? I think that if you really want to know the background between everything that happened before the Six of Crows duology, and if you want to know everything about Nikolai as well and what happened to him before King of Scars, it's probably a good idea to pick it up. But if a lot of the things that annoy you include one, mysterious, creepy older guy who likes to control your thoughts and your feelings and stalks you is a love interest, or number two, special snowflake plain Jane character is a weak character who gets no development by the end, or number three is going to have one of the most disappointing endings of all time and you're going to just not have any expectations going in. I think, yes, maybe pick it up, but I don't think it's necessary reading, especially if you've already read the Six of Crows duology. That is a far better series than this one. And I don't regret reading these three books because at least I know now that Leigh Bardugo has gone through the best character development of all time, writing these three books and then writing Six of Crows. Like, I just can't believe that she wrote the same duology. But also that I don't think that this series has dated well as well because of a lot of the ideals and the romance even. There's a lot of problematic elements. But yeah, I did find it enjoyable, especially Siege and Storm. I wish things just went along with the way Siege and Storm went. But anyway, you can't have everything. But yes, so this series is probably maybe super salty, but it's done and dusted and now I can get into King of Scars when it comes out. So, I hope you guys enjoyed my in-depth thoughts and my reviews on the Grisha Trilogy. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below on what you think about my thoughts and what you thought about the ending. Make sure to leave a spoiler tag. And also, subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time. Bye.